Welcome back to The People We Meet.
If you like this channel, if you're enjoying some of these videos, please like and subscribe, and you can also follow us on Instagram. Today we are talking to some very good friends that we've known forever,
Yes.
Andy and Terilee Pokoski, and they've got a powerful story. When I think about them, I think about God's faithfulness in their lives over almost 30 years now, and I think about Terilee's prayer life, how God has done miracles in their marriage and their lives, and she's a prayer warrior. Andy has a servant's heart. He'll do anything for anyone, and that combination is a very powerful couple. And God's been so faithful to them, and their story is amazing. So we want to start off with first thanking them for coming.
You're welcome.
Yes.
And they've known each other for a long time, so that's a really cool part of their story too. And did you want to say anything first?
I like the way you do that.
Because I'll just get right into it.
Yes. Well, would you guys know how much I like you, and I'm always telling your story, and just really promoting your marriage, and because people think they've gone through a lot of things, but you guys gone through a lot of things. But really, the thing that inspires me the most about it, you've worked through the issues. And I can remember me when I first got saved, just dating and different things like that. I chose not to work through all the issues because I knew it was going to be hard. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, well, let's just end this relationship and just go on. Mm-hmm. And I normally tell people when you come in, I'll give y'all's testimony. And then I was like, if you ever come in our church, you'd never know who that couple is. And man, I thank God for you guys. And Andy, he's just a hard worker. I like to say Andy's, old school, just far as hard worker. He'll figure out a way to make it happen. And just all the things that he's done, to help our church and different things like that over the years with the, haunted trail, all those different things, you figure out a way to make contraptions and different things like that to make it work. I remember that time where we did the Bible and it opened up, and you just made it happen. And it was just like, how are we going to do this? And it was amazing. So he can do just about anything with anything.
I think he just reads a book and then he knows how to do something. So
Yes.
He doesn't even have to go on YouTube.
Yes. And so I just thank y'all for y'all's testimony and just all the hard work behind closed doors.
Okay, so let's start with the beginning. So where are y'all from and how did you meet?
Do you want to start?
Sure. Well, I grew up in New Hampshire. I was born in Montana, Bozeman, Montana. My dad, there's 4 of us siblings, and we were all born in different states because my dad was getting different degrees. And he ended up getting a job at the University of New Hampshire, so we ended up moving there as a family. I went through kindergarten twice because I broke the teacher's ankle first time around. A little bit rough as a kid, and so I stayed back. And fortunately for that, ended up in the same grade as Terry when she came from. Where were you, Manchester at the time?
No, Rye, New Hampshire.
Rye, New Hampshire. So she came into the school, and
7th grade.
And we met. And actually, I remember the first time we met up in the hallway.
Right in front of the principal's office.
Yeah.
Andy was wearing blue chinos and a purple shirt that said Mouse on the back.
Oh,
Yeah, that's my nickname, Mouse.
So, those are the little things you need to know.
Yeah.
What I was wearing, I don't know. So, yeah.
So we met then, and
7th grade. How old are you in 7th grade?
13, 14.
Okay.
somewhere around there.
We hung around with all the same group. So we had a group of people that we were always hanging around together. So we were always together.
Okay.
Whether it was roller skating or at the movies or just hanging out, we were all together.
Yeah.
Okay.
The hangout was a Burger King downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's a University of New Hampshire, small small town, but all the high schoolers would go down there to Burger King and just sit there for hours talking and everything. And that's when she caught my eye. We were sitting there, and it's funny because my little brother, he says, "If you don't go after her, you're stupid."
Oh.
and and he was right. We've had our problems and stuff, but I'm just glad to be with her.
Let me
I
say,
never regretted that decision.
we were
Looking back, 2020
Yeah.
hindsight.
Okay.
Yeah.
We became best friends before we were involved, as boyfriend and girlfriend.
True.
We had some classes together, and we were the best of friends. I mean, we talked about everything. We did everything together, and it just kind of morphed into a relationship. I remember the middle of the night one night, I just didn't know how to deal with my feelings. It was like 2 or 3 in the morning, and I was sobbing, and just my mom's like, "What is wrong?" Expecting me to say, "Oh, I'm pregnant." And I'm just, and I'm like, "No, I love him. We're going to end up with kids and a picket fence and a dog. And Mom, gosh, he's going to be the rest of my life." And my mom's like, "What is wrong with you?" But the emotions were just so incredible. And it was that first adult feeling of, this is the man I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. So what I did, I turned around and got another boyfriend, because I was like, no, that's too scary. I'm not going to do that. So I started dating some other guy for a while, and then Andy started dating another girl, and I'm like, oh, I don't like that. So so I ended up weaseling my way in there, and then finally, I think freshman, I don't know, anyways, we started dating again. And when we started dating again, I was like, okay, this is it. This is the guy for the rest of my life. And that's scary when you're 17, 18 years old. And that's what scared me the most. I was like, okay. But at that point also, we had a strong foundation where we had talked about everything. We had talked about our parents, what we didn't like about our parents. My parents had gone through a divorce when I was in high school. Andy's parents were very interesting. So, we talked about everything. We talked about, hey, do you want kids? What are we going to do? How are we going to raise them? So we came from that foundation of communication from the very beginning. And that's, it was like, all right, Andy's like, well, I want to go in the military. I'm like, yeah, let's go. So it was... Yeah, I think we had a good communication from the very beginning, because we talked about everything. We knew where we were going, we thought.
Wow, that's amazing. How old were you when you wanted to go in the military, when you first wanted to go in the military?
Why did you want to go in the military?
Yeah, I wanted to go because I thought my dad would get mad at me.
Yeah, he did it to get his dad mad.
Yeah, I didn't like, and I told my dad, I said, I came back from the recruiter. I said, I just signed up for the Army. He said, really? I said, yeah. He said, I think that's the best decision you've ever made. I was so mad.
Andy's dad is a professor of electrical engineering. He's a very intelligent man, and he just wanted everyone to go to college. And he got to go to college. And Andy was very smart. He knew if anything had to be fixed on the farm, do it. And he did it. So he, yeah.
So you had a farm. Your dad had a farm as well?
Yeah, it was 45, 47 acres of land. Had a big field across the street that he wanted to do everything like back in the old time. He wanted to try it, so we got someone that actually fix the ground so we could do the feed. But we spread seed with these things. You just go like shooting the seeds out, 5-acre field or something like that. Wow. And then when it came time to cut it, well, guess what? We did it by hand.
Was this hay?
This was hay.
Wow.
So we cut a hay field by hand, with the
like
sickle and stuff like that.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, I get tired walking from the top of the field to the bottom of the field once. I'm just going to tell you.
We had an old 1937, I think it was, Ford 9N tractor, and luckily I was the guy that got to drive it.
Nice.
But we went and we had a wagon behind it, big huge hay wagon, throw it up, and so the first time we took it down into another field across the street on the side of the house where the house was, because we had both sides of the road, and we put it all out in the hay piles, and it all molded, went bad. So we found out, well, you don't do that.
Oh wow.
You know, yeah, because it got ruined. So we went, you know, we tried again the next year, but we got someone to bale it for us.
Okay.
You know, and that's when we started, and we got our own baler and all that kind of stuff. So we slowly but surely learned how to do it. We didn't know how to garden. My dad he was a city boy. He grew up in St. Louis, and you know, so we really had to learn on our own. But our next door neighbor, this guy is an old German man, Mr. Balajan, was how we pronounced it, but I think it's at Boulanger, really. And but he came over and he showed us how to do the garden and all that kind of stuff. So we just, you know, had good neighbors and stuff, took care of us, helped us, helped us, point us in the right direction and stuff, you know.
So a homestead before homestead was a thing.
Yeah, homestead for sure.
Yeah.
I think one of the foundation things that during this point in Andy's life that kind of carried through the rest of his life is if something broke, because they didn't have the money. At that point, professors weren't paid like they do now. So they didn't have the money, so you had to fix it. So what he did is, you know, Andy's dad would go, Andy, it needs to be fixed by the end of work or else. And it had to be fixed. Mm-hmm. So, but that's kind of the way Andy looks at something. If you know, this is broken, gotcha, and it's fixed. I mean, so you look at something and you don't throw it away, you fix it. And that's something that he learned, not very nicely, but from his dad he learned, and he's taken it through his whole life. You know, like even with raising kids, it's broken. Wait, stop, take some time, think about it, fix it. Don't throw it away. Don't, you know, and that's our relationship really.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's something that he learned. You have to
Yeah.
do it or you get beat, you know. So, yeah.
And believe me, he can fix it. I mean, it's amazing.
So did you learn how to fix the 1930s tractor?
Oh yeah, except when something was really really bad, we had to get the guy out there to do it. You
And
know.
the hay baler and
Yeah,
everything.
the
in the
baler,
house.
and my older brother helped out with that. And
We went back to New Hampshire a couple of years ago for something, and we weren't in town that long, but I told Andy's dad, you got one day, and he made a list. And so the first thing Andy did is they're like, okay, get under the foundation, because it's how old is your house? 300 years old?
1712.
Yeah. So it's a really old, both of us grew up in houses like that. So the foundation, of course, is, you know, falling apart. And he's like, okay, you and him and his brother John were getting under there and they were fixing everything. And he's like, all right, what's next? Okay, let's go to the barn. Let's, you know, it's falling down. So it was just a whole day of like, okay, Andy can do this, Andy can do this, Andy can do this. And it was fun. And Andy's like, that was the best vacation ever, you know, because like I got to look, the barn's falling down. We get it. And so it was just like, I'm going to the beach. You just do what you need to do. But it's just funny that Andy's dad's like, he can fix anything. It's fine.
Wow. So back to high school. So you guys start dating, you know, 7th grade off and on, and then you decide this is the one. So what age
Well,
do
let
you...
me see. Like, we met in 7th grade. We didn't date until junior year?
Somewhere around
So, because I'll tell you, as an 8th grade girl, he was the coolest guy you could ever
Curly
know.
hair, right?
No, he had straight hair at that point. He had like Beatles hair. It was like Beatles straight, you know. But he was in a band. I mean, how cool just to go and just, oh, there he is. But he didn't know who I was. He just, you know.
Where did you perform?
Like
we did-
dances
we did,
and, yeah.
Okay, like for school
parties.
dances.
Yeah.
Middle school dances.
okay.
And the Grange, if you know what a Grange is. It's like the town. Sorry, we're too country. So, but it was, you know, I was just like, oh, he's just so cool.
Singing and guitar, or what? Which one?
Singing and guitar. We always had a lead singer. There was a guy down the road that could sing like crazy. We did Journey stuff, and he could sing just like Steve Perry. It was amazing.
But
But
he
then,
didn't know
then
who
he
I
tried
was.
the rock
Like, what?
stuff, and his voice kind of went bad.
So you guys had all that good 80s music.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's-
he was. So in high school, he didn't know who I was, and I was always, I am a social butterfly. If you didn't know, love to talk, love people. I was just great. And then finally, our junior year, we got closer. We started to date, and then, as I said, it just got so scary to me. And at that point, I was living with my mom, like 2 hours away. So during the summer, I spent with my mom, and we had broken up. I'm like, no, you got to back up. I can't do this anymore. So, and then our senior year, I don't know what eventually happened. Something broke, and then finally our senior year, we were dating again. And then May of that year, he asked me to marry him, and I was like, oh yeah, Sure. I mean, it
Seniors in
wasn't
high school?
Yeah. And it wasn't, the thing is even though we hadn't been together that long, I knew. I'm like, this is the guy I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. I just know it. So, and then in May, we got engaged. We graduated in June. Andy went to the Army in August. Like August 1st, Andy went into the military. So
Wow.
Andy went into the military, and then he came back in December. We got married that December. And then Andy shipped out to West Germany. It was West at that point. West, East? West Germany. West Germany, I'm sorry. I had a thought. West Germany. And then 6 months later, I went. And then our life began.
Wow.
So,
And then Kirsta was born in Germany.
mm-hmm,
Right?
both
Okay.
Kirsta and Talia.
Oh, okay.
So Kirsta and Talia were born. Talia was like 6 months old, something like that. And we came back to the States. So we did 4 years, 3.5 in Germany.
3 years, 7 months, 2
Yeah.
days.
So you're 18 to 21 or so.
Oh yeah, we got married when we were talking about this. We got married when we were 19. I was barely 18. So Andy had turned 19 that June, and I had just turned 18. So we're 18 and 19. So we were 19 years old, and we went overseas. The people
Were you
we
homesick?
No. I just wanted to get out there and live life.
Okay.
I was like, I just want to live. I don't think we were.
No, because really the military is a family.
And
We
also
really
at
treat
that
each other
point,
well and stuff.
we were 19 years old. There was nobody over 30 there. I mean, some of the sergeants and like lieutenants, some of them were like 30. Like the oldest person that we thought was like 35. So everybody was the same age. And it was just incredible. And as you said, we had talked about everything. So we're like, you know what? We're here because we lived on the German economy. We did not live on base. So we're like, we're going to have kids. We can do this because I don't need to work. We can do this. So we decided we're going to have kids, and and it was just fun. It was great. Just.
And marriage was good at that point?
Yeah, it was. It was good. It was very eye-opening. There was a lot. We grew together because there was no family around. You know, when you start a marriage, it's very difficult because you have to like, oh, your mom, your sister, my dad. And so there's always everybody else's opinions going on, and you're trying to please this person and that person. But in Germany, it was us.
Yeah.
We didn't have a phone. We didn't have a TV. We had us. And we had, at like 8 o'clock at night, we had, what was that radio station? It was like an Army radio station that we listened to for like an hour, and Paul Harvey. So we listened to Paul Harvey every night. And, you know, but it was, those are the things, and we had nothing to do but talk.
Yeah.
So, but it was great. It was harder when we came home.
Armed Forces Radio.
Yeah. And when we came home, Kirsta was a little bit over 2, and Talia was like 6 months or so. Anyways, but it was harder because all of a sudden we had to learn how to let somebody else in because we were like, no, this is us.
Yeah.
So when you came back, where did you guys live?
We were in the backyard of my dad's house. In a
Okay, so back to New Hampshire.
We-
New
yeah.
Hampshire pop-up
Okay.
camper. We stayed
Yeah, but
there
we-
until
af-
he kicked us out.
Were you
We
still in the Army, or had you finished?
You out processed.
Yeah, out process, but what I do, I
You
went
out
back in.
processed. We lived with Andy's parents for a month or so, and then we moved to Maine.
Okay.
And then in Maine, we were, I don't remember the timing of it, but at some point Andy went Army Reserve,
Okay.
right? Were you Army Reserve for I don't remember.
Okay.
So anyways, it was Army Reserve, and Andy worked in Maine
Okay.
as a mechanic for a while, and everything was okay. It was towards the end of our living in Maine, it was rocky. It was getting rocky. We were starting to implode, really.
What do you feel like had changed? So your communication was really good in Germany. What do you feel like changed in Maine?
Money.
Mm-hmm.
I was
Oh, wow.
working my tail off, and,
Yeah.
and I was never home
Okay.
because I was working so much.
Yeah.
Was it just the living expenses were higher in the United States that y'all, or you're just trying to make more money?
Well, with the Army, I mean, you're set, really.
Yeah, everything
Okay.
was
You
taken
know,
care of. You didn't really have to
it's-
think.
Yeah.
Okay. So getting out of the Army or going into the reserves, then you had to get a,
Well, then
Regular
I got
job
a regular
and-
job
okay.
as a mechanic up in Kittery, Maine.
okay.
And it was a good place to work. It was like the guy was he was looking at California the whole time, seeing what they're doing, and trying to keep up with that, because for some reason they were ahead. But it was just, constant working. Constant working, didn't have time to do anything. And that's
Did you feel like your stress level was high just because you weren't relaxing, you weren't doing other things? Did you feel like you were stressed a lot?
Yeah, I was pretty strung out.
Okay. And angry because of that? So stress can produce anger pretty easily
Yeah.
if you're on edge a lot? Okay. Just wondering, like, what was contributing?
Also with mine, I'm not proud of this, but in my past too, I was getting lonely. I'm home all day with kids. I have Kirsten and Talia, lovely children, but when you're with kids 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and of course church wasn't even on our radar.
Yeah.
I mean, God was not even in the picture. So it was just us, and we've always been really close, but also I was getting lonely, really lonely. So I started to go looking for other relationships with friends and stuff, and then with me that led to going out drinking with some friends, and then doing some questionable things. So it was really me that really just got out there and started going, and why? I don't know. This is the love of my life.
Yeah.
It's the love of my life. This is a guy I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. We're going to have, so many kids. We're going to do all this. And what happened? And it's not that hard.
Right.
I'm like, everybody's like, oh, no, we're okay. That'll never happen to us. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we came from a strong foundation. We created a strong foundation. And I just decided to turn my head and said, okay, I'll be back.
Right.
And decided to go live my own life and, just covered myself with sin. I mean, it's a pretty gross story, but it's,
Yeah.
And I did that. And we, when it was happening, Andy, you went Army Reserve at some point, right? Is that where you went, Army Reserve? He was working at the Army Reserve duty station along with us, so there was a lot of time that he wasn't around. But when we were having those problems, Andy decided, I'm going back in the Army. We're going active duty reserve. I think that was the timing. And we decided we were going to run. Basically, not at that point, but we're like, okay, we're going somewhere. And he's like, oh, we're going to Georgia. I'm like, we're going to Georgia? What the heck is in Georgia? Athens, Georgia. Never even heard of it before. I was like, really? Do we have a choice? All right, we're going to Georgia. So we moved and Andy came down here, and then 30 days later, we came down here with the kids. But instead of running from our problems, I just brought them with us.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Why Athens, Georgia? I mean, was it you had to go a certain place?
No, that's where the Army sent us.
Yeah.
Okay,
Here,
okay.
Boop.
Okay.
You didn't have a choice.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, no, it was God.
You
but-
don't choose your duty station.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, so
So active reserve meant that you were working full time for the reserve. So that's
Yes.
the definition.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Okay.
so I'm there,
Yeah.
through the week,
Okay.
and then on the weekends, once a month, I think it was, the reservists would come in and train.
Okay.
but during that time period, things didn't change because Andy was gone all the time, And I decided I was working at that point. I became a CNA, so I was working full time, and it was I think that now that I look back on it, we were so consumed on doing other things that we kind of forgot what we were. And especially me, because I'm thinking, what am I missing? I'm missing something. I know I'm missing something. Where Andy was gone a lot, we were always like striving, I got to get that money, got to do this.
Yeah.
So I was the one that was just really, really out there. And now looking back on it, if I were to look at somebody else's life, I would go, why are you staying with her? She's treating you so badly. She's, every, agreement that you guys have made, you've broken it. Why? And now I look back on it, the man that I have in my life didn't give up on me.
Yeah.
I deserved, there's no reason why he couldn't have walked away from what I did to him and the pain that I caused him. He could have walked away at any time. He's just crazy enough to go, no, I can fix this. So, am I wrong? Yeah.
So what were you feeling during that time, Andy? Like, so she's doing some things that, so I guess, did you start finding out what she was doing, that she was going to clubs, or were you watching the kids? How did you?
I was well aware of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
I wasn't
then
happy about it.
did you choose?
Let me tell you a story. I'm sorry. This is a story I don't share too much, but I was out with friends. We had gone to a club downtown, and I had pushed it with Andy so much. We had sent this is another story, but we sent the kids to New Hampshire. We sent Kirsten and Toy to New Hampshire for the summer because I was just off the chain. I was just awful. And so we sent them up there. So I spent the whole summer partying with my friend, and we were downtown, and we were, at a club, and Andy drove up in his truck, and he drove up next to me, and he's like, "Get in the car." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "No, get in the car." I'm like, "No." He's like, "Yeah, you're done. Get in the car." And I'm like, "No, I'm not." And then he had something on his seat, and he pulled it, and he had a gun. And he had a gun, and he says, "Okay, you get in the gun, you get in the car, or I'll make you get in the car." I was like, "Okay, I'll get in the car." So I got in the car, and I was like, "This doesn't change anything," But that's the app. I mean, you could just, looking back on it, you could see the desperation and me just not caring. You kind of look at some of these people and go, "How can she do that?" But you know what? You are so covered up with sin, and you're just so wallowing in it that nothing else matters.
Right.
All kind of sense of normalcy and what's right and wrong is just totally gone. You're just enjoying that high
Right.
of life.
Yeah.
And I look back on that, and for so many years, I was just so embarrassed to tell anybody. But I'm like, no, this is nothing can change this but God.
Right.
So that's where I was coming from. I didn't care. I didn't give a crap about
Right.
anything. My kids, oh well, I'll see them again someday.
Right.
So what was going through your mind? So you find her downtown. Instead of just letting her go and starting over, what made you want to keep this relationship together?
Because I loved her.
Okay.
No
Even
doubt
though
about
she was
it.
treating you that way?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
She's the one I chose.
Wow. Did you see that in your parents? Even if they had hard times, they stuck together? Did you see it in your grandparents? Where did you?
My parents had they had a good relationship, but my dad was under a lot of pressure, and he took it out on us and my mom.
Mm.
And he was 6'3", ex-football, basketball player and stuff. So he's pretty tough.
Yeah.
So I saw that a lot, and I just didn't want to be like that either. It's like I can't do that.
But you did see a commitment marriage is forever. You're going to stick with
commitment
this.
from Andy's
Yep.
mom. Andy's mom's like 5 foot nothing. She wasn't even 5 foot. So she was just.
No, she's 5'2".
She was like this she was itty bitty compared to Andy's dad, giant.
He's 6'3" and 5'2". So
And she's as horrible as Andy's dad treated her. She just, loved him to death and just stuck with it. And Andy's a lot like his mom, a lot. And I think he really saw that because, there's so many times I think Andy's sister and I were like, you don't need to do this. Yes, I do. Yes. So looking back on it, I think he really did take that from his mom was like, "No, we got to make this work. We can figure it out."
Yeah.
Andy's dad was like, "Just do it." But Andy's mom's, "We got to figure that out." And I could see that with Andy because if he can't figure it out, he's just going to go crazy.
Yeah. So determined. Won't give up till you figure it out.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy with my parents, just because of the relationship they had, and
Volatile, is that a good word?
He was 6'3", she was 5. Who knows what? Pretty shorter than me. And I remember him picking her up by the neck and just shaking her like a rag doll, and throw her across the floor and stuff. And that night, they put locks on the bedroom door because I told her I'm going to kill him in his sleep. And I was going to. And that's just how it was. There's a lot of hatred in our family, a lot of fighting, a lot of this and that and stuff. But there were real good times too.
Yeah.
So it was just like this.
Wasn't as crazy as some other families I know.
Well, just over the years, it's like when Andy makes up his mind he's going to do something, he's going to do it. And just, seeing that I'm going to make this work. And I can just see that, because when he makes up his mind, it's going to get fixed.
Yep.
And Andy can be stubborn in a lot of ways.
What?
Well, just like that.
I am stubborn.
I'm going
But
to make it
you
work.
look at some of our kids, and they're just like that.
Yeah.
Right, Talia?
And so, like, it's just like, I can see that aspect of it. I'm going to make this work, when you think about family and different things like that, I know a lot of the story, to where, you didn't have a religious background, and, but yet marriage, I made this commitment, I'm going to make it work, And so I can just see that playing out.
So with the kids going to New Hampshire during that period, did that help things? Did things start getting better or no change?
It gave me an avenue to go out more.
Okay.
So basically what I was doing is I was working during the day as a CNA. So I would work I think at this point we separated. Am I wrong? Time's a little fuzzy.
That's probably correct.
Yep. We just
living in separate places.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There's a lot that goes on here. But there was one episode we decided I asked Andy to move out. Kids were in New Hampshire. I asked him to move out, and I just wanted to party. I didn't care about anybody's feelings. I wanted to be happy. And so what I did is Andy moved out with a friend. I don't remember what he did. He did that. But that night, I had somebody come over to the house. So I had to come to the house. In the morning, Andy walks in, and I'm with this friend. And Andy's like, get out. So anyways, that imploded. I mean, that was one thing in my life that I just wish. Do you ever have that thing in your life where I just don't even want to remember that?
Yeah.
This is the one part where I really had to say, wow, this is bottom. I hit bottom. Look what I just did. He was so mad. And knowing, if you know Andy and his stories, you'd think, oh, this is where Andy takes the gun and kills you. Seriously, okay. Right? But I'm like, no. So what ended up happening, we had an all-out fight. It was wild. I packed a bag and I just started walking down the street. This is the first time I met Pastor LaValle. We'll pull him into the story really soon. So what happened was I took off because I was more embarrassed than anyone. I'm just like, whatever. So as I was taking off, just walking, Andy was following me in the car. He's like, get in the car. I'm like, no. And you know me, I'm a little stubborn. I said, no, I'm not. I don't care. I'm just walking. I don't know where I'm going. I'm just walking. So then he took off for a while. I'm like, okay, he's gone. Then he went and got Pastor LaValle, and he was in the car too. And I was like, who is that? And then finally I walked down and there was like a store. So I stopped and I'm just sitting there going, I don't know what I'm going to do. What am I going to do? So I'm sitting there and he's like, you need to get in the car. And then there's this crazy guy next to him just rocking back and forth. And I'm like, who's this guy rocking back and forth talking to himself? Who are you hanging out with, Andy? I'm like, what the heck? And I'm like, whatever. So eventually with the guy rocking and stuff, like, this is just weird. So he's like, come on, get in the car, come back. And I'm like, okay. And so we did. And I got back to the house. And
so was the rocking, was he praying?
Yeah,
okay.
I think so, right? I'm assuming I wasn't in the car, but now that I know him. And so we got back to the house, and I said, I got to move out. We got to go. So I moved and was living with myself for a while. And with the kids gone, I was just free to do whatever I wanted. So I went out, I went to work, I came home, I partied, I got up the next morning, I went, I partied. So I was continually doing this. I was drinking a lot. My dad's an alcoholic. My grandfather's an alcoholic. I, of course, was going right down that lane. I liked drinking. I like drinking to this day. I haven't drank in like 30 years, but it was something that I like to do. And, but it just messed everything up. So it was just a time in my life that was just so miserable, but I don't know what would have happened if the kids were here, because it just kind of gave me a chance to just go wild and go crazy.
Right.
Okay, so
I'm sorry.
Now go back to the.
I've seen, not to say your situation, but where people, get married at a young age, or do things at a young age where they feel like they missed out.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And a lot of times they'll, things that happen to where it's like, I got to go relive those days and try to make up for the lost time.
Yeah.
And I've seen that, a lot to where people feel like, just different circumstances where I've got to make up for the things I didn't do or try to relive that,
Okay, so Andy, what was going on with you driving around with a pastor in your car?
Well, even before that.
Yeah.
Okay, so back up, I don't know how many weeks, few
How'd
days
you meet
or
Pastor?
a couple of weeks.
Well, I would say what even led up to that. because
How did you know, Pastor?
yeah,
Manuel was my battalion motor sergeant. He was at the battalion level over the stuff. So I was I didn't work for him, but I worked for him. I don't. It's hard to
Yeah.
hard to explain it. But he was like, I got someone who wanted, 'cause he kept talking to me and talking, I'm like, shut up,
So this was in Athens.
This is
You guys were
Athens
working
at the
together.
Army Reserve Center.
Okay.
And so
Couldn't get away from him.
Pastor LaValle.
So he was kind of like just telling you about Jesus. What was he saying to you?
Yeah, and I cussed him out immediately.
Yeah.
I cussed Pastor out when he when he
Now
came
might
out,
be a good
but-
time to talk about Andy's religious past.
I was gonna say because
Do
you
you
didn't
have-
you
yeah.
didn't much
What was your
have
feeling
much
on
religion.
God?
I was a pure atheist. There was no such thing as God.
Yeah.
I knew demons. I knew ghosts. I saw ghosts. I mean, we grew up in a house that was built in 1712. I saw my grandfather as a ghost in my closet,
Wow.
just standing there watching me.
Mm.
And I mean, there's some weird stuff happens in that house.
yeah.
Or I don't know if it does anymore, but it did. So I knew there was something going on, but I didn't believe in God at all, because there's no way that there could be a God if this is the life I was living.
When we were in Germany, I specifically remember I had a Bible, and as detail-oriented as Andy is, we had encyclopedias, and he put them on the wall. It took like 3 days to put these on the wall because we had to measure everything, and everything had to be straight, and it was awful. So we put it on there, and he had to move the Bible because we had bought a Bible, and he took 2 books and held the Bible and then put the Bible up there. He wouldn't even touch the Bible. He was like, no.
I've heard you say that. I didn't know what that meant.
It was
Wow,
true.
literally.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you touch it?
Because I hated the whole concept, I guess.
Okay.
The whole concept of it. Because my life didn't make sense with, how can there be a God if this is my life?
Okay.
So I didn't believe it.
Okay.
And it's like my parents they both grew up Catholic, and they said, they brought us to church when we were really young and stuff, and I can't remember how old I was, 3 years old or 4 years old or something like that, and my dad had us all sit down and say, what do you guys think about church? You want us to keep going? And we're like, no, and that was it.
Okay.
That was my religious upbringing.
Okay.
I had no idea.
Okay.
No idea at all. And then from then on, anyone ever said anything about I had my best friend Tom Murdoch. He, I was over at his house and stuff, and he was praying, before bed with his mom, and I'm like, "What are you doing? What are you babbling about? What are you?" like, shh.
No, yeah.
I had no idea.
No concept.
Yeah, I was totally lost in the sauce. I didn't know. So it was just like, I knew nothing about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we fast forward back to Athens, and you meet Manuel Delgado, so a guy you're working with.
Manuel, yep. And he kept
Manuel.
talking, and and of course, I was, bucking everything he said and stuff. So he invited Pastor LaValle to come.
Okay.
Yes. So Pastor LaValle's there, standing in front of the door with me and stuff like that, and I cussed him out. I said, I don't want anything to do with your blankety blank blank.
Now this was at the reserves.
At the reserve
Okay,
center, yeah.
okay.
Reserve center, and I said, I don't want to hear it. And then get the blank out of here and stuff. And he's ex-military anyway.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he's looking at me like I'm a crackpot of some sort, But so he left, and it was like, well, that's probably the end of it. But as things got worse and worse, and I kept. Manuel he wouldn't give up. All the other people in the reserve centers, don't listen to him. He's crazy. Don't listen to him. Just forget it. Come on. They took me to a party and stuff, and they're all doing drugs and stuff, and I'm like, we're in the army. Why are you guys doing drugs? I didn't do it.
Right.
And I didn't belong anywhere really. I was just at a point where I didn't belong.
Right.
It was just me against the world.
Okay.
And
And Andy was probably, I'm gonna win.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was gonna win.
We're gonna fix
Heck
this.
yeah.
Yeah.
Get out of the way. Here I
Yeah,
come.
yeah, yeah.
So let's see. How did this come to pass here?
So when after Pastor LaValle left the reserve, how did you meet up with him again?
I think I went to his house. Yeah.
Because
No?
you lived in it. Was that? Did you
We
guys
lived
live in
around
the
the
same
corner
neighborhood
from him.
at that
Yeah,
time?
we did.
Okay.
No,
But things built up before he actually had that encounter with Pastor again.
I got saved all by myself.
Yeah.
There
But
was
you
no
had
one
gone to
around.
church.
Huh?
You finally went to church. You
Finally
finally
went to
caved
church
in.
a little bit.
Listen
yeah.
to Manuel.
But now, what led up to that? It seems like you had come to your breaking point.
Yeah, it was a
You
break.
know.
It's like, all right, I got nothing to lose. Let me try it.
Okay.
you
Okay.
know. And I went to church, and nothing happened. Do you remember when I came to church?
Not the first time.
Do you?
I remember when y'all first came into the church. Yes, I remember.
No, just me myself. The very first time I was in there,
I remember he had shorts on. Was that the first time?
Yeah.
purple shorts,
Like,
cut off
Really,
pink.
okay, I was going to say they were
Crop.
really short.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
they
Really
were short and cropped. This
Crop
is
T-shirt.
What was it? Get it up, keep it up in America.
Yeah, great.
That's what it said on the T-shirt.
I was not
Yeah.
there.
It's from Loverboy.
Mm.
Okay.
And I went to church like that and stuff, and
Because you had no concept of what even church was.
Yeah.
all these
What do you
people
do?
dressed up and stuff, and I'm like, whatever, It's like I didn't care. No one really wanted to talk to me anyway, And I ended up going down and get saved. It was just like it blew me away.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, I didn't really get saved then.
You
'Cause
prayed that day.
I prayed.
Yeah.
I prayed, but I wasn't saved.
Okay.
I said the prayer, and I didn't mean it. It was when I was sitting up at my house on the back porch when Terry and I were separated and stuff like that. It's like, I'm going to kill someone, because she's cheating on me, and I'm going to take care of it, and it's going to end. I had inscribed the person's name on the bullet. I had a sniper position picked out. I knew where he lived. I was just waiting for that door to open up, and I'd say, pop him. And never got to do it.
But you had what? How many bullets?
I had one with his name on it. And then I had another one for someone else that's sitting near me. Just in case. And that's all I needed.
Right.
That's all I needed. I was ready. I don't miss.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so you're sitting on your back porch after you go to church, and you're just, so even though you didn't mean the prayer, God heard your prayer. So God keeps working on you. God keeps working on you.
On me. I got saved on the back porch by myself. And the flood of God on me was just, I broke down.
Wow.
Instantly got saved. Instantly,
It was
life
just-
changed.
it was like that. It was like,
immediately,
I'm about ready to cry.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a conversion experience that everybody wants,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but are you crying out enough?
Yeah.
Almost. I don't want to say
I
that,
couldn't
but
doubt anything. It's like as much as I knew there was no God, I all of a sudden knew.
Yeah. And just having that encounter. I mean, for all of us, well, for me, it's like I didn't grow up in church, but it was like God made himself real.
That's what I was going to
And-
say. When God, you can't explain it. When God makes himself real to you, you just, yeah.
and Andy had changed I can't pinpoint anything, but we weren't talking at that point, and I had been manifesting in such a manner that Andy came close to me or talked to me. I would just manifest. It was awful. I was like, oh, get away from me. So I had this unexplainable anger towards him. But he would come over to the place I was living, and he's like, oh, your door's broken. Let me fix the lock. And he would fix it. I'm like, okay.
She was in a rough part of town.
Yeah, and I was like, okay. And he kept coming, and he kept doing stuff. He's like, oh, I'm going to church. And I'm like, yeah, right. He goes, no, I got to go to church. I'm like, okay, what? Andy doesn't even know what church is. And he said this like 3 or 4 times. Yeah, I'm going to church. And the way he changed, but I couldn't figure out what it was. I mean, you can't change. You could pretend for a certain amount of time, but I was like, this is weird. Something's different, really different. Just with, the anger was gone. That he was just, I'm like, what? Are you high? Or what it is? So, it was just, I could see that difference. I really could.
And then you go meet Pastor LaValle, go to his house, and then you guys start.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I can tell that what happened when I eventually got saved. What happened was I had gone out the night before with a friend. We had gone out and we had partied, and I couldn't get drunk. We went to like 5, 6 bars downtown, and I drank a lot. And I was like, what is happening? Why can't, come on. Obviously, I'm, trying to fight stuff, and I'm just all this mental stuff going on. I'm like, whatever. So we came home, and the friend came home with me, and, we were asleep, and I woke up, and I looked over at this guy. I mean, he wasn't romantically, but he was just, and I was like, what am I doing? And for the first time, God really opened my eyes and said, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I got up and I went to my closet and I sat in my closet. And I'm like, huh. And it's the first time reality kind of all of a sudden hit. Look, where are your kids? What are you doing? You're drunk. Where's your husband? Where's the love of your life? And it all of a sudden hit me, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? And I'm like, well, I don't have a gun. Get a knife. That's going to be messy. That's going to hurt. I can take some pills. No, so I'm cowardly trying to figure out what in the world to do. And honestly sat there for an hour thinking, how can I kill myself? Because this is nothing is going to be, my kids are and then finally, I picked up the phone and I called Andy and I said, hey, and first of all, for me to talk to him was a miracle. I hated him. Everything I'm like, and also, let me preface this by saying, for the last 2 weeks before this, I had drank every night. I ate very little. I was down to like 100 pounds. I was not eating. I was not drinking. I was just a mess. Picked up the phone and said, hey, can I come over? Andy goes, yeah. I'm like, okay. Got in the car, drove over to Winterville. Don't remember doing it. Don't know how I got there. Got on there. Hadn't slept because I was either drunk or whatever. Got to the house, sat on the magic porch where Andy got saved, same couch, sat next to him, which was a miracle, and within 5 minutes I was sound asleep. I don't think we even talked that night, did we?
Mm-mm.
I fell asleep. I hadn't fallen asleep in like weeks.
I just picked her up, carried her in, put her to bed.
Yeah.
Wow.
And woke up the next morning, and I just can't explain that feeling all of a sudden that you realized what you did to your life. And I was like, oh my gosh. But I felt as though something was broken because I looked at Andy and I think we both said, what do we do? Didn't hate him.
Right.
Didn't hate him instantly. By going to sleep that night, the hate disappeared and I just really saw my sin.
Yeah.
And I said, what am I going to do? And he goes, well, there's this guy I want you to meet. So we walked down the street to Pastor LaValle's house. And he says, I want you, because he was going to New Hampshire to get Kirsten Talia. He's like, well, I'm heading to get the kids. I want you to meet this guy in case you need anything. I want you to stay at the house, blah, blah, blah. So, okay. So I went down there and I met him, and I don't even remember what we talked about. I just remember the rocking guy. Pastor Valley likes to rock. Sitting in his living room, and he was just rocking. I'm like, what is wrong with this guy? It's just, and Cheryl was there, but she had stepped on a horseshoe crab. So she was laying down. I didn't even meet her. So, and through the course of everything, he's like, you want to pray to get saved? I'm like, yeah, sure. And it was so easy, but I was like, and I was a mess. I was crying, I was weeping. It was like, but I was like, how, if you would have told me this is how my life would change forever, I would have never believed you.
Right.
But just a simple, Pastor, I don't even know what we talked about. And it was just do you want to pray? And as soon as I said yes, the tears started. I didn't even pray yet. And I was just weeping and crying. And then it's, my relationship with God has been amazing.
Right.
But I'm not going to say it was easy because it was a lot of work
Right. Oh,
after
yeah.
you prayed. But all of a sudden, oh, God loves me. Andy loves me. I got to love me. So it was just amazing. It sounds so simple, but just that experience of just all of a sudden walking into Pastor LaValle's living room thinking, I'm such a mess. I'm such a sinner. Oh my gosh, it'd be so much easier to kill myself. And then walking out feeling like there's hope. There's hope. There's a life. There's a love. Something loves me more than I love me.
Right.
So therefore, I think I can love me again.
Did you feel forgiven at that point? Or did you even think about that?
No. Well, forgiven by God and what I'd done, yes. By Andy, no.
Yeah.
That was something that would take years, believe it or not.
Right.
And that was the hardest thing for me is forgiving myself. You know, even after, you know, we worked through everything and Andy forgave me, it was years and years before I thought that I really deserved to be forgiven.
Right. You know, and one thing that I remember so vividly, it's just like how you saw Andy changing. And, you know, just even when Joe came to follow up.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
you know.
I'll tell you that story. I was at the house. This is before I don't know why I was there. I was at the house in Winterville for something, doing something, and somebody knocked on the door. And it's this tall, skinny black guy. And I'm like, hi. And he goes, hey, I'm a friend of Andy's. I'm like, no, you're not. Are you military? He goes, no, we go to church together. And I'm like, one, you're black. Two, you go to church. Andy doesn't do any of those two things. And he's like, no, we go to church. Could you just tell him I came by? And I was like, yeah, sure. Thinking, who is this guy? So, yeah, I knew it was changed. Andy wasn't all out racist, but you had to be a pretty good guy to be Andy's friend.
Yeah.
Not understandable, you know.
So you're pretty picky to begin with, and then just certain groups of people
So
discluded.
And just seemed like that led up to
to like
this drastic change in Andy from not touching the Bible.
Yeah, and he
to
was very
now.
angry. Andy
Yeah.
was a very angry individual, but yeah, definitely.
And so I just remember that. And it was just like, because even when he had started coming to church, he was like, nah, there's other reasons why you're going to church.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, let me go see, you know, and it was like led up to you getting saved. And it just seeing all that take place.
The one thing that, from my point of view, later, you know, getting to know other people in the church, telling the story of like when Andy would come to church, and from what the other girls say, nobody knew Andy had a wife and kids. I think it was like 1 or 2 months before Andy got saved, and then I got saved. So there was a time period there where I remember our friend Shauna was like, you have a wife? No, they thought he was just this single guy. I'm sure the girls were like, yeah, well, you know.
I remember all the singles used to go to the Stevens house, Terry Stevens.
Oh, yeah.
I remember when everyone found out that I was married, because I remember your face.
Really?
Yeah, because you were over there in the kitchen stuff, and I said something about my wife, and you went.
I remember Shauna said, where
Where has she been?
he's married.
Yeah,
So.
because nobody knew.
Yeah.
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 Well, of course we tell our story now, but at that point, I don't think anybody knew there was anything wrong.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Andy's so chill.
Yeah.
You know?
Sit back and observe everybody. So earlier you talked about your communication, you know, right when you first got married was good. How long did it take to start to communicate again? All the anger issues, and how did you start to communicate differently? Is that
When I got saved and we decided, okay, we got to make this work. We started communicating there. You have to, you know, and we decided, one, this was going to work.
Right.
And I got on board. You know, Andy's always like, it's going to work. Me, I was like, there is no plan B. The word divorce will never be spoken. There's, you know, and we set a foundation. This is going to work. God, you know, we got to allow God. God has got to be first in this relationship. Nothing is going to be hidden anymore. There are no more secrets. Any question in our life has got to be answered, especially with me. I said, you have questions, I have to answer. And that was the hardest thing for me. And the reason I had problems forgiving myself was because in order to dig out all the sin and the infection, Andy had to ask questions that I did not want to answer. But in the long run, I gave him permission to ask all those things. And then I'm like, I can't lie. I'm not going to do this. And so it took, 2 years, maybe, to really dig everything out and to really start out again. But as I said, we started the foundation. If Andy says, hey, I don't like you talking to that guy. Okay. And so I'm like, okay, cool. Because I had crossed that line and I had broken that. So there was a lot of things that were really rough that first year that people looking in would go, your husband's too controlling. And I'm like, he has a right to be, So I think we sat down with, God was a really huge part of our lives. And, I think with God being so forgiven, it was just incredible that a lot of what I did just disappeared.
Praise God.
How do you think you've dealt, just kind of looking back, how do you think you've dealt with anger over the past now almost 30 years? What's a new way that you
I don't
deal
throw
with it?
things anymore.
Okay, good.
No.
It's too expensive.
Yeah. I don't know if I know how to answer this.
A verse that's really helped me is just in James 1, just to be quick to listen, slow to speak,
Yeah.
and slow to become angry. And I feel like if we apply that to life a lot more
Yeah.
and just listen to each other and just don't speak so quickly, don't get offended so quickly, I think it's just so helpful.
Over the years, because we know one another so well, there will come times where I'm just like, okay, stop. You can't do that. And as we're older now, I'm like, please don't do that. Where this is that. So we're very honest, not like picking apart, but, very honest. We're like, no, you can't do that. So there's a lot more communication there where I don't hide my feelings at all, do I?
Never have.
So, if I'm happy, I'm happy. If I'm sad, Antonio's telling me to smile. It's just, I have a problem, but still, yeah, God is always there. And also with my anger, I go to God a lot. I go to prayer a lot. Prayer is like so ensconced into every moment of my life. But if I'm having those feelings, I'm picking them apart myself before God in my knees and just really saying, okay, is this more than this? What's going on? Am I jealous? So I do a lot of really just kind of picking something apart so it makes more sense.
Getting to the root of it, like why?
Yep.
Because that's what I find too. If I'm angry, it's usually not that person I'm angry
Yes.
at. I've got something going on inside. And I'm just taking it out on the person in front of me.
And I do that with my kids. It drives them crazy, but I do.
And one thing I like to say is, after the kids come home and all that, they actually have 2 more kids.
Oh, yeah.
You
So
know,
that's
in
yeah.
the
I had that written
process.
down. I was like the one of the biggest blessings of your reconciled marriage is 2 more kids.
So I got saved in 94, right? Yes. Got saved in 94. There was a healing there because we wanted more kids, but there was a really healing there. And then in 96, I got pregnant with Shaylee. And then in 98, I got pregnant with John.
Yay!
So yes, there were 2 more kids in the mix.
And then how many grandkids now?
7.
Hey.
So
Yes.
yeah, there's a lot of life in there.
Yeah.
Well,
We fast forward a lot, right?
Well,
there. I just had to.
Well, and just
You're very good with your grandkids. I had to fast forward to
Well,
that.
just one thing you said earlier, it's just like as you're setting these new foundations, it's like, well, this is not an option anymore.
Yeah.
And the one thing as Christians, I like to, let people know there's no back door. It's just like you have to deal with the issues.
Yep.
And it's just like my love for God. It's like, okay, I got to get it right with God. And now I got to get it right with this person. And so it's making you have to deal with the issues to where it's just like you just can't push them away and not deal with them. And so I think that's the wonderful thing as being a Christian. Jesus is in the middle. And then, that relationship and loving God makes us love each other and have to deal with the issues. And when you look at people out in the world, it's just like, no, I'm not dealing with it. you know. But in that relationship with God, you have to deal
You
with
have
those
to.
issues.
It's going to come back up.
You know, if I say I really love God, then I've got to deal with this issue. I've got to make it right.
Gotta back it up.
And then it's just like, it just, you know.
I remember Mandy telling me something actually a couple of years ago. When you come in and get saved, you deal with yourself, you know, and you think, oh, you know, it's so awful trying to get rid of the sinful you. But when I came in, there was just so much going on, because not only did I get saved and I was dealing with my salvation, I was dealing with healing my marriage. I was dealing with Andy's new salvation, and I had 2 kids that I had to determine, how am I going to raise these 2 kids? First of all, how am I going to heal them for the brokenness that I put them through, you know, with Andy and I having problems? And how are we going to raise these kids in God? We've never done this before. We don't know. Andy barely knows who God is.
Yeah.
So at that point, we just kind of like grasped onto God and said, you've got to do this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because there's always somebody out there telling you how to raise your kids.
Yeah.
Right.
How to raise your kids, what to do. And Andy and I were just talking about this recently. Our relationship with God has been so personal.
Yeah.
Because God really came into our lives and just smacked us to the ground, to put it another way. But it's been, so everything we've done has really just gone back to God.
Right.
What, you know, and so a lot of what we've done is like, well, you know, we've always gone to God first. And I look at some other people, oh, well, I read this book and the Bible says this. And I'm like, yeah, but what is God telling you?
Yeah.
Right.
And I said, I think that's where we were just talking recently. That's where our relationship is different, because it's God. God is a living, working person that lives right there with us.
And Terilee is one of the biggest prayer warriors that I know. So we're prayer partners. And when I asked Terilee, you know, you can ask people to pray for you and hopefully they remember, but Terilee remembers. And I know that because I'm just, oh, what about, remember you asked me to pray for that? How did that work out? I'm like, oh, you remembered. Oh, that was 2 months ago. And so that's been powerful. And I feel like that's where God just speaks to you in your prayer time.
I love to get involved with people's lives that way.
Yeah.
Because and I'm not always that close to God. I mean, it's not like a 24-hour, 7 days a week thing. But there are times where God will, like I'm sitting in church or I'm sitting during my prayer time and he says, Antonio. I'm like, okay, gotcha, Antonio. You know, but I love the closeness that I have a relationship with God, that he's willing to trust me with people.
Yeah.
That he's willing to say, like, we can be in church and there'll be people at the altar and God can say, that person needs you.
Yeah.
And you go down and you're like, and how did you do that? You know, so I am thankful that I decided to get my life right and give my life to God. And he's just so much a part of my life that I love it. I mean, I love to dig into people's lives. And
Yeah.
sorry, pray for you. So, but yeah, if you say, you know, I'm going to say, God, there's something wrong with that person. What is it? You know, and quite often, like even walking down the street, I'm like, oh, no, God, I don't want to talk to them. No, come on, you know. But I crave that relationship. I also crave that everybody else find that relationship because it's so awesome.
Yes.
But
And, you know, just over the years, because I remember first coming in, I've seen the whole process, you know, and a lot of people don't think, well, I can work this out, or it can be, you know, we can fix this. And just seeing God do it in y'all's life.
I remember so many times Antonio will bring somebody to church, like, oh, this is Andy and Terry. You're Andy and Terry? I'm like, what are we supposed to look like? You know, because I know you share our testimony a lot, and I said that's the best thing to me is sitting in church. New converts or like new teenagers, they'll come up and they don't know anything about my testimony. So hopefully they're thinking, oh, they're just Andy and Terry, you know, they're just fine. And then they're like, what? You know, you start, you know, sharing an odd part of your testimony. And I remember we were at somebody's house, we were doing this, the guy's like, you're so normal. What, you know, so it's
The power of God to change a
I
person.
can remember one guy that I've worked with through the diversion center, and you know, drugs and all that. And I'm talking about you can make a movie out of this guy's life, and hopefully he'll, you know, come around and, you know, get it right. But we've had this relationship over 5-7 years now, and I can remember bringing him to you two, and y'all start sharing y'all's testimony. And I mean, this guy, I mean, his life, it's like, I don't believe that. I don't
Yeah.
believe that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just like, it's like, it's unbelievable. But then I bring him to you two, and y'all start giving y'all testimony. He's like, man, I feel normal. It was just like hearing y'all's testimony. And so a lot of times y'all don't realize
You don't.
how much people need to hear your testimony to give them hope.
Yeah.
And it's just like just seeing what God can do in the supernatural. Because I've talked to a lot of people, they've never seen a miracle in y'all's marriage relationship. It's been a miracle. And a lot of people don't have that and don't believe in that. And so you don't realize how many people that y'all are giving hope and helping, and just letting them see there is light at the end of the tunnel.
If you're believing in something beyond yourself,
Right.
you're letting something in. So yeah.
So the other thing that has inspired us over the years is just Andy's servant's heart. So where do you get that from? Do you get joy from helping others? Or is it just the fact that you know how to do so many things that everyone just comes to you?
Sounds like all the above.
Yeah, it's
Because what I've seen outside looking in, you do things with a good heart and a good spirit behind it. So it doesn't seem like it's drudgery to you, but
I think I'm a sucker for just people who need help and just helping them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I didn't grow up that way.
yeah.
I think especially the soccer. Andy coached high school soccer for quite a few years, and kids soccer too. But I think what it was is it gave Andy a chance to impart into somebody else's life something they did not have.
Yeah.
It was school, so he wasn't witnessing and testifying all those. But we live our testimony.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, you come to my house, I'm going to be me. I'm not going to be anybody else. My house is going to be dirty. But I am me. We are who we are.
Right.
And, Andy coaching is, in a way, his preaching.
Yeah.
And you've been a father figure to a lot of those guys, I know, because
Yeah.
you've been with them for how many years do you stay with a group?
Guys and girls.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I did the girls at the high school.
Okay.
I coached them, and a lot of them didn't have a good family.
Yeah.
And I was the dad for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Just
was-
teaching some of the girls.
Suck it up. Let's go. Just mellow out.
Well, teaching also with some of the girls, they've never interacted with a male who didn't want anything sexually from them. So you're interacting with somebody for the first time who really cares about you.
Right.
And that's what Andy's going to do. Andy's going to love you.
Yeah.
And they're seeing that for the first time, and still, he's still in contact with them.
But still being stern.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's been awesome because y'all are pouring your lives into other people and helping them, and just seeing that whole grace factor from God, just the healing, forgiving, and now you're able to share that with other people. It's amazing.
So we talked a lot about, we just kind of skipped over the past,
Yeah.
highlighted the past 20 years, but what do you say? I know this past couple of years y'all have had some trials. Do you mind sharing anything about a few of those trials?
Yeah, I was thinking back where to go. 2-3 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So that was very trying. But I think the one thing about the breast cancer that was different for me was I was not afraid. I was not scared because I went to God and I was praying about it. And this sounds very selfish, but God says, this isn't for you. This is for other people. You're going to reach so many more people from just this medical episode than you ever will by yourself. And I was like, okay. So God says, no, you can handle this.
Yeah.
It's going to be for other people. I was like, okay, that's weird. But then as I went on, the people I met, the people I saw, and even the people in the waiting room, because when you go for radiation, you're always going to see 6 or 7 women, and they're always going to be there. And I'm always happy, and I'm smiling, and they're like, are you really here? I'm like, why are you so sad? Come on. The sun is, and just just having that attitude that was just so natural spoke to so many different people. And I didn't mean to. It's just that's the way I am.
Yeah.
I have grumpy days and stuff, but that's just the way. And people are, even in church, are like, I can't believe you're just so, I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do? I can't sit home and do. So I think, unfortunately, yes, it wasn't easy to go through, but it wasn't hard either, because God said, this is going to be nothing. And it wasn't. It was nothing.
Wow.
So, and then after,
But on your last radiation day,
on my last radiation day, our car transmission blew. And I was like, oh, God, what? He's like, yeah, I got you through the radiation, So then that happened, and we didn't know what we were going to do with the car. And then there was a time period, Andy was having some problems with short-term memory, and it affected work. So they gave him some vacation time, to figure out what's going on. So at that point, not only did, my radiation was done, but we didn't have a car. What do we do? Do we buy a new car? Do we, financially, we can't handle this. Andy was out of work, which ended up being like 3 or 4 months. So we're like, what do we do? I mean, I can't support the family. Andy's he's almost 60 years old. What are we going to do? Yeah. No job, so we panicked. But God kind of put that back together. And the thing is something like
it's
that.
It's funny you say you panicked. Mm-hmm. But you never showed that on the maybe you're panicking on the inside. But I remember you telling me some of these things, and you're just like, God's going to help us. I don't know how it's going to work. God's going to help us.
Yeah, and that's the thing is you do panic, and I have those moments where I'm in the bedroom and I'm just crying and I just can't deal with it. But God says, okay, wipe your face, get up, let's go.
Yeah,
and that's the way I raise my kids too. I mean, I'm not like, yes, you're allowed to cry, you're allowed to do that, but wipe your face. Pick yourself up and go on. Not everybody has to know everything you're going with. Life is so much bigger than just you.
Yeah.
So, and feelings are valid.
Right.
I mean, and there were times where like, you know what? I don't want to go to church. How am I going to do this? We at that point, we didn't know if it was dementia, and other people were starting to notice it. I know that you guys noticed it too. So I'm like, what am I going to do? I mean, but it all comes back to God saying, it's going to be okay. I'm going to work this out. And I remember it was really panicking time, but it was really, I got it. I got it. Yeah. Don't worry about it. I'm going to help you. I'm like, okay. And also I grew during that time because at this point you feel so useless. I can't fix his brain. I can't do this. What am I going to have to do? I don't want to take control of our relationship because I don't feel comfortable doing that. Andy's always been the one that's, always taken the first step. So I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to come across as bossy. I don't want to do this. So it was putting me into a new position, but also saying, God, I'm willing to do whatever I have to do to make him look good. Right. I'm going to pick up the pieces. I'm going to be there. And God really expanding me to say, how much are you willing to do? And me finally getting to a point that says, I'll do anything. I don't care if he ever gets better. I don't care if he's bedbound. I don't care. You know what? He loved me when I didn't love me, just like God.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I can do this. So wherever he is, no matter what I need to do, I will do it. And as soon as I said that, the worry just disappeared. Yeah. So God was bringing, and I've always said that God's not going to put us anywhere where we can't learn something.
Right.
And it's always been in our life. And I always say this to the kids too. And I'm like, hey, we're just going to learn something. We'll go on.
Yeah.
And that's the way it's kind of, I don't know, some people just think, oh, that's too.
Well, I was telling someone the other day, just, you can have a different perspective when trials come your way. Mm-hmm. You can think about it. Okay, this is a new adventure we're taking. That sounds crazy.
I know, yeah.
But God, how are you going to work in this situation? Yeah. This is going to be awesome to see God work in this situation. Yeah, we've been through these other things. He's been faithful. God, and it's almost, it's a little bit weird, but it's kind of like you're a little bit excited about to see God move.
And so that happened, and then Andy was out of work for like 3 or 4 months, but we did have a chance during that time. We went out to Oklahoma to visit Andy's brother. And that was just amazing.
Back on a farm. Yeah. Remember all those farm pictures?
Yeah. And then spending time with his family. And it was just great. And God just really did move. But also in the last couple of years, my grandson, Lincoln, had brain surgery. He has Chiari malformation. and they had to go in and remove part of his skull. So that was a major operation. That was scary. But throughout everything, I don't ever remember worrying and being scary. Yes, it's scary when your grandson is in the hospital and he's so, tubes and drugged, and it's just horrible. But in the end, I said, God's going to do something with this. This is going to be incredible. And that's just the way to look at it. That's just an automatic reaction that I'm very grateful for.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and then just other, there's been ups and downs. There's been, problems with kids and their marriages and everything. But the one thing that anything that's going on in my kids' lives, they know that God's involved.
Yeah.
They know Mom's praying about it.
Because they call you to ask Mom, can you
do.
pray about this specifically?
Yeah. And also, it's also given us a point for, for Shayla to say, Dad, come pray for Lincoln.
Yeah.
Dad, come pray for Gabe. When my daughter just got married, and praying for her husband on their wedding day. It's just they know anything that's going on in their lives, they call. Yeah. They know, and so we've created that foundation in their lives. They may not be currently serving God, but they have all the information and they know.
Well, just the wonderful thing is just watching y'all bring the grandkids and just being, just being that example. You guys stand together, just showing them, hey, this is how you do it. And just seeing the grandkids with y'all, it's just like, it's amazing. Thinking about where you started and where you are now.
Yeah.
And here it is, you guys are training up a new generation. And just seeing what they're going to do, for God in the future, it's amazing. Just the background and all that, and just
if God wouldn't have gotten involved in our lives, first of all, Andy said, I don't know how long ago, Andy did not plan to live beyond 35. He planned to go all out in life and kill himself before he was 35. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so he was just going to go out.
So now looking back on all that, what would you say to those out there that are listening to the podcast? Just summing it all up.
My goodness. I'd say just give up as far as to God, give up
Surrender,
to God.
yeah.
Surrender, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, just
There's something out there that's so much more than what you're going through right now.
there's always hope.
Yeah.
I think that's the big thing. There's always hope.
Yeah.
What you're going through is a small blip in what you're going to be going through eventually.
Yeah.
That's every little thing seems like a mountain, but as soon as you've gone over it, it's just a dot in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And God is there to adjust your perspective.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, it may seem like a lot when you're going through, but prayer and just I think that the hardest thing for me to do over the years is find friends to share with, because I am such a person that is personally, so in touch with God at times, and so it's really hard to share with people. And I think that's the one thing in the past 5 years or so that I've really learned to do, is to reach out to friends and tell them what you're going through, because it's not only for me, it's for them. Oh,
Right.
I'm going through that too. Oh, hey, so a lot of the secrets that I've kept, or, like as a female that I've kept, that now that I'm sharing it with people, I'm growing.
Yeah.
And then
So-
they say, oh, I didn't know
I
other
did that
people
too.
went through that
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, and just this community that we're building, inspiring people, giving people hope. It's just like it's strengthening other people. Like I tell people, like, well, yeah, you're helping me, and it's a two-way street. I go to the Diversion Center, weekly, and these guys are coming out of prison, jail, and it's just like, I'm learning just as much from you as you're learning from me. It's a two-way street.
Yeah.
And just building that community to where iron sharpens iron. It's like where we're helping each other in this battle called life,
When people look at our lives and say, "Oh, you're such an awesome family. You're such an awesome," I'm like, "No, God. It's
Yes.
all God." Because you look at my life, and at times I'm like, "Yeah, I feel guilty at times. My life does seem a little bit too good, but it's God. There's no way.
It's the blessing of God. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
there's
just,
no
you
way
live for
that I
him and
would-
you just see what he will do. Yeah.
I would not be sane. Without God, I really, truly wouldn't be sane. Andy'd be in jail or dead. And I would not. I would not be sane.
Right.
I really think, because I've poured myself into God. So,
Yeah.
not always, but try.
Well, thank you so much for your inspiration to so many people around you. And I think now people hearing your full story is just really going to help people see you in a even a better light. You know, people look up to you a lot anyway. And but just seeing what God's brought you through, it's just going to be amazing. So thank you once again.
Well, you know, just I think just even with marriage, you know, how the divorce rate, you know, I can right now, I can count off 7, 8 people that are getting divorced or just gotten a divorce within the last 2 years. And so and that's the devil's whole aim, you know, is to come against marriage because God created that, you know, and the world hates it. And so just seeing how God is using y'all's life to help others, but just even coming against that whole myth of, you know, we're not made for each other, or, you know, it's not working out.
I made a mistake.
Yeah, I made a mistake. And it's like, no, God is there to help us work these things out.
God is so much bigger than just my relationship with him, because I never would have dreamed that by praying that not only would he change my life, our marriage, my kids, my grandkids. I mean, I'm seeing my grandkids discover God for the first time.
Yeah.
I'm having conversations with Beck and Lincoln about God.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
You know, and it's so, I mean, there's a connection there. Even my kids are not in church, there's still a connection there, and it's all because of God.
Oh, yes.
And they know that too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they know that mom and dad are together because of that.
Yeah.
So,
Praise God.
amen.
Well, thank you again.
I was just going to mention, as we're talking about the family and stuff like that, is we've had the opportunity to pray for our grandkids and stuff when they're sick. We had, what was it, Lincoln? Lincoln was having these big problems with his ears and stuff like that, and the doctor couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, I forgot that.
We prayed for him.
We
He
did.
got healed.
I remember that too.
Yeah, and
And
the doctors were like, we don't know.
Doctors like, what happens? And Shaylee said,
Shaylee's the one who said
Yeah.
Shaylee's
it
the
was
one,
God.
She said,
Yeah.
she said, my dad prayed for him.
Oh,
Yeah, and the
And that
doctor's
was it.
like,
and
well,
he said, that works.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's it. My kids, pray for my kids, but they're not ashamed to give credit to God.
Yeah.
And especially Kirsten and Talia, they were there and they were old enough to know what it was like with us when we weren't the nicest parents.
Yeah.
So. But definitely communication. Please communicate.
It's deep down in them.
Yeah,
in
communicate
there.
with your kids. That's the one thing with a second chance I feel as though we had with Kirsten and Talia. Our communication with Kirsten and Talia were so much better than with Kirsten and Talia. I just was talking to Talia last night, and I was telling her, I said, I do apologize as young parents that we didn't communicate with you and the way we did with John and Shaylee. And we had a really big conversation as she said, hey, you're your first-time parents, of course, but you know, having the chance to really sit down and finally communicate with your kids. And so one thing I tell about anybody is the difference in our family is we talk about everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely everything. Nothing's off the table. There's, you know, not when Andy was coaching high school and Shaylee was coaching with him, the girls would have a problem. Oh, I'm on my period. I'm doing this. Like, oh, well, go tell Coach Andy. What? I'm not going to tell him. He goes, he's got 3 girls. He's heard everything. So teaching the girls how to approach a male and have a conversation and how to trust them, that's what my kids automatically do. Oh, go talk to dad. Go talk to dad.
Yeah.
You know, so it's been awesome watching them share the love. I think because the love and the relationship we have is so different from other families.
Yeah.
You know, because we didn't have that in our families.
Yeah.
So that's what you were saying. What did I see in my family? Because my mom got a divorce. She's been divorced twice, and my sister's been divorced a couple of times. And I'm like, no, I'm going to fight for this.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to fight. I'm going to make this happen.
And it's worth fighting for. Yeah. It's worth fighting for. Yes. Thank you.
It's been fun.
Yes.
All right, one more time. Like and subscribe to The People We Meet and follow us on Instagram.
Come on. We need your help.
Thanks for watching.